This is Good Night's Sleep. Welcome to tonight's tale of gunslingers, outlaws, and obsession gone wrong in the lawless Old West frontier. The blazing midday sun scorched down relentlessly as your horse slowly walked across cracked earth and drifting sands. The parched ground shimmered and wavered in the baking heat, blurring the barren landscape into hazy illusions. You had been journeying through this frontier for what felt like an eternity, with only the occasional withered bush or wasted tree interrupting the stark emptiness. Driven ever forward by whispers on the wind and rumours in forgotten Dust Bowl towns, you sought a legendary treasure hidden long ago in a remote abandoned ghost town somewhere deep within this untamed wilderness. You weren't the first fool lured west by tales of riches concealed in the Badlands, but you aimed to succeed where so many others failed, and be the only one to finally unearth this elusive bounty. Adventure flowed through your veins, sustaining you through the harsh environment in relentless pursuit of mystery and fortune. Your own past remained obscured behind an impenetrable fog, with no memories rising to consciousness from those clouded depths. Much of it was a blank slate, including how you came to be on this lonesome quest. You had long ago ceased dwelling on past events beyond recollection. Your focus was fixed wholly on the present, and the tantalizing promise of undiscovered wealth awaiting somewhere in this savage land. The day's sweltering heat emanated from the cracked earth as dusk slowly dissolved the last light. A faint, flickering glow emerged on the distant horizon. An isolated campfire beckoned through the growing darkness, like a lone star in the empty firmament above. Approaching with guarded caution, you spotted two figures sitting silhouette around the small fire, its dancing flames occasionally illuminating their features in brief glimpses. One was a rugged, broad-shouldered man wearing a weather-beaten hat. His lean companion had sharp, wolf-like features and an intense stare. A tingle crawled up your spine as the piercing eyes turned sharply in your direction. "Evening there, stranger," the broad-shouldered man said in a gravely voice roughened by sand and dust. "Name's Arthur Morgan." The wiry man tipped his hat,
Folks call me Dutch Vanderland. And this here's my associate. Now tell me, friend, what brings you all the way out here into the middle of God's nowhere?
The notorious Vanderland gang was spoken of in hushed whispers across the scattered outposts and frontier towns. Tales of their daring heists and violence were traded discreetly over campfires and in shadowy corner booths. Arthur Morgan himself was a living legend, a hardened gunslinger with a reputation carved in the blood of those foolish enough to cross him. Keeping one hand cautiously near your holstered revolver, you chose your words carefully while studying the two men. I seek only solitude and the freedom of the open plains, nothing more. Dutch let out an incredulous laugh that sounded more like a coyote's bark.
Now don't take me for a fool, my friend. Men like you don't end up in places like this unless they're hunting something. So I'll ask plain one more time. What is it that brings you out here?
You hesitated, debating how to respond. The logical choice was to decline conversation and continue on your way. Yet, some deeper instinct pushed you toward trust against your better judgment. I've caught winds of certain whispers, rumors of a treasure buried long ago near a ghost town deep in the frontier. I aim to find it. Intrigue glint in Dutch's eyes as a sly grin spread across his weathered face.
Well, ain't that a curious stroke of fate? You see, me and my friend Arthur here find ourselves on the very same treasure hunt presently.
Arthur furrowed his brow, skepticism creeping into his lowered voice.
Now hold on there, Dutch. We can't go trusting every gold hunting drifter that crosses our path. This here could be an ambush for all we know.
Waving off Arthur's concern, Dutch continued undeterred.
As luck would have it, we seem to be birds of a feather on this clear night. I propose we consider an arrangement of sorts to cooperate in covering this treasure as equitable partners.
Every shred of reason warned you to decline the offer and continue the solitary quest. These men were infamous outlaws, skilled in deception and violence. Any alliance could end with a bullet in the back. Yet, the allure of their first-hand knowledge was too tempting to ignore. So against your better judgment, you sealed the deal with a firm handshake. For now, at least, you would be comrades after the same prize. But you knew to keep one eye around these world-weary men. When the rising sun burned away the night sky, Your newly formed gang of treasure hunters departed the remote campsite to begin the expedition. The unlikely trio now made its way through jagged canyons and winding trails, penetrating deeper into renegade territory, navigating past hostile squatters, predatory wildlife, and cutthroat bandits. You became forced allies out of necessity. Saving each other from mishaps and fending off external threats. But still, you could feel the uneasy tension simmering just below the surface. Dutch rode up, front on his elegant steed, scrutinizing ancient maps and surveying the rugged landscape as if already envisioning the fantastical empire he aimed to build. Arthur skirted the perimeter with an alert gaze that missed nothing. His instincts honed sharp over years of running with outlaws and gunslingers. Meanwhile, you observed them both, trying to discern their true intentions beneath the gentlemanly words and hardy camaraderie. After long weeks of fruitless searching, the first solid lead finally emerged. A mining town. Its structures were ravaged decades ago by greed and bullets during the early frontier days. Sifting through the wreckage of the derelict saloon, you pried open a water-damaged floorboard. Tucked inside lay a faded cloth map marked with cryptic symbols and coordinates obscured in mystery. The first clue on the map pointed toward a remote trading outpost, uninhabited since its frontier heyday. Arriving at dusk revealed a ghost town frozen in time, still bearing scars of past violence. Desolate, decaying buildings languished in burned-out ruins amidst overgrowth and scattered bones. Rifling through abandoned supplies and unopened cargo crates left to rot for decades felt like wandering through a graveyard suspended in history. But there, in the rear of a rusted wagon, hidden beneath rotten debris, the second clue awaited. An unsent letter penned by the long-dead local preacher, implying a secret message concealed within his final Sunday sermon. Galloping to the ramshackle chapel before night fell, you sifted through mouldy hymns and Bibles, littering the collapsed pews until discovering the telling sermon wedged inside Exodus. A coded passage implied the next signpost was an abandoned mine, forgotten after a long ago catastrophic accident that left only corpses. As the clues guided you deeper into the parched wilderness, tension within the group continued building. Dutch grew dismissive of Arthur's concerns over his reckless gambles chasing treasure, responding with grandiose speeches about destiny rather than wisdom. Meanwhile, Arthur directly challenged Dutch's unpredictable leadership, questioning the true purpose behind this obsessive quest. Your attempts to mediate the rising conflict were largely ignored as the two men grappled for control of their fracturing fellowship. The abandoned mine awaited at the end of a deep serpentine canyon passage. Only a dilapidated bell tower remained standing over the rubble of the bygone company town buried in the wake of past mining misdeeds. Delving into the wrecked mine revealed little, but decades of debris and bones of those unfortunate souls killed in the tragedy. But there, tucked within the rubble, half buried in generations of dust, sat a tarnished iron lock box. Inside rested an ornately decorated antique pocket watch. Winding the watch hands to the correct time projected a hidden engraving upon the watch's face. It said, "Sunset Overlook." The uneasy band of treasure hunters made camp in the canyon beneath the creaking bell tower. When dusk fell, they ascended together in tense silence up the sloping canyon path to a cliff top overlooking the west. There, reaching the canyon rim as the setting sun sank below the distant mountains, faint etchings emerged on the weathered sandstone face. Squinting against the fading burnt orange glare, the markings revealed the next destination. A remote pioneer cemetery in the valley below, now almost completely reclaimed by the untamed wilderness. As darkness descended, Arthur built a campfire and cooked mere rations, his mind clearly burdened. Meanwhile, Dutch scribbled fervently in his journal by firelight, gripped by imaginings of the extravagant empire near at hand. Neither spoke much. You volunteered for first watch, then feigned sleep to further study their interactions. Once convinced you were unconscious, their hushed argument revealed something that threatened to rupture the fellowship beyond all repair. It was clear both men concealed truths about their motives in this quest. But who would betray the other when the treasure was finally unearthed? The final clues were now within reach after the long pursuit across this merciless land. Yet, Relations strained the alliance to the brink of collapse. Consumed with obsession, Dutch chased the prize relentlessly without heed to risk or reason. Arthur's open defiance was met with indignant lectures about grand visions he could not comprehend. Meanwhile, disillusionment left you questioning your own place in this fractured quest. Three riders arrived at the overgrown cemetery the next day beneath a hot midday sun. The creaking metal gate beckoned entry into the isolated grounds. Guided by Arthur's keen tracking skills, a search located the faded tombstone of a once prominent frontier judge. Beneath the eroded marker, concealed in a buried tin lockbox, lay a final map pinpointing the exact location of the legendary treasure. An abandoned homestead 2 valleys southeast. At long last, the object that sparked this obsessive odyssey now sat tantalizingly within reach. Yet the strained fellowship sat on the edge of collapse, consumed with obsession. Dutch muttered about his impending riches and domain. Arthur directly confronted him over his irrational leadership, seeing clearly the madness in Dutch's claims of destiny and higher purpose. Meanwhile, you withdrew into conflicted introspection, questioning your own obscured motivations. As you prepared to depart the cemetery, a sudden commotion at the valley's edge seized your attention. Peering down with leveled rifles, a rival gang of bandits had tracked your group's progress for days. Their leader bellowed loudly for you to reach for the sky or be buried where you stood. In response, Dutch rapidly drew his revolver and fired a warning shot skyward. His eyes alight with fury over this alleged challenge to his authority. Chaos erupted as bullets peppered the earth. You scrambled for cover behind tombstones, returning fire at the ambushers. Arthur tackled Dutch prone behind a fortified gravesite as shots hammered the ground around them. Vastly outgunned, you ducked into an empty crypt, seeking an escape route or weapon. Enraged, Dutch screamed oaths about vengeance and retaliation for this affront, refusing calls to surrender the treasure map or retreat. Meanwhile, Arthur tried in vain to negotiate safe passage, seeking only to survive the ambush rather than stand and fight. Emerging from the crypt, you saw Arthur and Dutch pinned down, at risk of being overrun. Knowing you could not flee alone, you whistled for your horse, mounted up, and charged forth, firing wildly to distract the bandits. This bravery granted Arthur and Dutch time to break free of their barricade and gallop away from the cemetery towards the canyon pass. You rode hard after them, bullets kicking up dirt all around as the furious bandits gave chase. Reaching the canyon path entrance, Arthur steadied his steed to a stop and yelled out for you and Dutch to keep riding. Before you could object, Arthur aimed his revolver and fired at the cliffside, collapsing part of the trail and cutting off pursuit. This selfless act enabled your escape. Consumed solely with reaching the treasure, Dutch said nothing, any loyalty to Arthur extinguished by feverish obsession. You implored circling back to try and rescue Arthur, but Dutch would not be deterred. Pressing on relentlessly towards the hidden homestead, his gentlemanly facade had completely peeled away. At daybreak, you arrived at the secluded, abandoned homestead. Ancient oak trees loomed over the dilapidated cabin and sagging barn, obscuring what lay beneath for decades. Without a word, Dutch leapt off his horse and rushed ahead, crazed with anticipation and liberation, so close at hand. Following warily behind, you noticed freshly turned soil behind the old tool shed. The buried chest called to Dutch like siren song. After years spent combing through lands chasing phantoms, Dutch finally fell to his knees before the ancient wooden chest, exhumed from the earth. Throwing open the lid revealed not gold or jewels, but only an empty container housing nothing but dirt, cobwebs, and broken dreams of those now dead and gone. Howling in fury and anguish, Dutch whipped around frantically, looking for someone to blame. His wild eyes locked with yours, narrowing in accusatory slits as he drew his pistol. "You deceitful snake. You crossed me. You stole my rightful treasure." Before you could respond, he fired a bullet that splintered the ground by your feet. I always knew you couldn't be trusted. You barely dodged another shot that whizzed past your ear. Scrambling behind the shed for cover, your thoughts raced about where the real treasure had disappeared to. Had it ever actually existed? Or was this entire misguided quest just an illusion? Was Dutch's supposed companion Arthur even real? Or just another phantom who left with no trace? Dutch continued his tirade, vowing bloody retaliation against you or any other traitor who had deceived or betrayed him. Then, soft laughter drifted on the prairie wind. There, at the homestead entrance, stood an unexpected yet familiar sight. A battered and road-weary Arthur, clutching a warm leather satchel and chuckling with amusement at Dutch's mad ravings.
"Looking for something, brother?"
he called out in a voice jagged with gravel and grit. Shock swept over Dutch's weathered face.
"But how? I saw you trapped and doomed by those bandits back in the canyon."
Arthur just shook his head.
"You honestly think I'd sacrifice my hide over one of your fool's errands?"
He casually tossed the bag at Dutch's feet.
"Here's your treasure, full of meaningless trinkets and glittering stones. Don't you ridicule me, boy. That fortune is owed to me by God's own covenant for all I've sacrificed for our cause."
His hands trembled as he aimed the pistol at Arthur's heart.
"You never believed in my vision."
But Arthur did not flinch, staring only with profound sadness at the shadow of the mighty man he once followed.
"I believed, but no more. Our world is done now, Dutch. Future has no place for cavaliers like us."
He spoke gently, knowing the true enemy was time itself, which had left them adrift and irrelevant.
"Our glory days have passed, never to return. We must seek new lives now and new hopes."
Enraged to the point of madness, Dutch seemed unaware as you stealthily approached him from behind, prepared to disarm him if necessary.
"You spineless coward. You rue the day you turned on me,"
he shouted, spittle flying as he trembled violently.
"I have the vision to lead our kind to paradise. If only you weren't too small-minded to see it."
As Dutch slipped into delusion, you struck a blow to the back of his head, knocking him unconscious into the dirt before he could retaliate further. Arthur gave a weary nod of thanks before gazing down mournfully at the empty cache that had claimed what little soul Dutch still possessed.
"We lost everything chasing foolish dreams," Arthur sighed. "There's no treasure here. There never was."
He turned to you then, new wisdom etched on his brow.
"I reckon it's time we leave these ghosts behind. Seek new lives now, friend." world has moved on.
You nodded solemnly, the truth in his words resonating with your own soul as well. This shared odyssey had left Dutch stripped and exposed. His charisma peeled away to reveal the hollow obsession within. Arthur had gained wisdom about what truly mattered in this life. Not riches, but brotherhood. And you now understood that the way forward relied not on buried relics, but choices still ahead. After gathering provisions and horses, Arthur prepared to depart in search of meaning, never looking back. He suggested meeting again under future suns beneath open skies. As Arthur rode over the horizon in pursuit of new purpose, you turned to follow your unknown destiny. Somewhere beyond the valley awaited the next chapter of life's journey across the untamed land. The echoes of your tumultuous quest faded upon the prairie winds. With Dutch left abandoned and broken, forced to wrestle with the gnawing emptiness of his greed, while Arthur rode forward, with hope and redemption, your fellowship had ended. For a brief time, your paths had crossed under the heavens, leaving behind memories destined to become yet another whispered legend. But as the sun crested the hills, possibility continued to stretch far and wide across the frontier's expanse, awaiting those daring enough to seek their bold futures along the uncharted trail.